All right, hey, welcome to another episode of Uncle Ray's Corner. We have a special guest with us today. Horror fan Andy is in the building. He's
Hello.
not technically in the building, he's in his building. We're connected
Yeah.
via the internet, so that's pretty cool. And with me, as always, is Jean Paul Mantilla, or as we know him in the business, we call him, Puddin' sometimes,
Mr.
Lunchbox.
Puddin.
Yeah.
Snack
um,
pack.
Today we're got a special treat for you guys. We're going way back in the Wayback Machine to 1994. We're going to talk about The Mask, starring Jim Carrey. I'll do a brief overview of the film for those of you that aren't aware. When timid bank clerk Stanley Ipkiss, Jim Carrey, discovers a magical mask containing the spirit of the Norse god Loki, his entire life changes. While wearing the mask, Ipkiss becomes a supernatural playboy exuding charm and confidence, which allows him to catch the eye of a local nightclub singer, Tina Carlisle, played by Cameron Diaz. Unfortunately, under the mask's influence, Ipkiss also robs a bank, which angers a junior crime lord, Dorian Tyrell, played by Peter Green, whose goons get blamed for the heist. The film, released July 29th of 1994, was directed by Chuck Russell. Those of you in the horror community would know Chuck Russell as the director of, can you guess it? Nightmare on Elm Street 3 Dream Warriors and The Blob, as well as the films Eraser with Arnold Schwarzenegger and The Scorpion King, one of the worst movies ever tied to a franchise. Like I said, briefly, the cast stars Jim Carrey, Cameron Diaz, Peter Green, Peter Reichert, Amy Yasbeck, Ben Stein, television's Ben Stein, comedian Richard Jenny, who I will discuss towards the end of this video. He was one of my favorite stand-ups from the 90s. Nancy Fish, and Jim Dugan. One more quick thing I just want to say about this film before I throw it over to Andy, where he can discuss it, kick us off with our discussion, is this film had a budget of $23 million. It made 351.58 million worldwide. Jim Carrey, though, only made $450,000 for this starring role. This is the role continued with the success of Ace Ventura, Pet Detective in the same year that allowed Jim Carrey to become a $20 million a picture movie star. For those of you that don't know, also, this film was based off of a graphic novel series from 1991 by John Arcudi through Dark Horse Comics, which had absolutely nothing to do with this film, really. That run, like I said, was published in 1991. It followed the story of the detective in Edge City, Mitch Kellaway, who obtains the mask from a blonde woman hired by Kathy, who was once dating the deceased Stanley Ipkiss, who had it. So it's a completely different type of story. It's a great comic run if you're a fan of this film. It's neat to see how it all originated. I'm going to throw it back over to Andy. Andy, take us away.
Okay, so like you said, The Mask is based off of the comic book, and I will say this comic series is beyond violent, if that's your cup of tea. But don't read this thinking of the movie, because they're like Ray said, it's two completely different things. It definitely took a lot more inspiration from like Warner Brothers cartoons, Tex Avery being a big one. Just beyond zany.
Right. Yeah, it's a crazy read. I was surprised. I was 13 years old when this film came out, so um, I just knew it as this, and then much later, when I got into graphic novels, when I was late teens, early 20s, read The Watchmen, and then I went back and read Ninja Turtles, which is a much more violent and dark story. The Crow, which is even darker than the movie, and then that. So, yes, nice.
Yeah, I was gonna say when you go back to Tex Avery and Looney Tunes, because this is New Line Cinema, which is owned by Warner Brothers, they did point that out as much as they could. Like even though Dark Horse was not one of their properties then, they did push hey, here's Tex Avery throughout different random parts of this movie. And hey, we also know Warner Brothers, so Tasmanian Devil shows up a couple times.
Right.
Just kind of like, hey, remember our property is not the property that this
Yeah.
is actually from, which kind of made me laugh in certain parts of this movie because I'm like,
Yeah, because it definitely took a lot of inspiration from. Yeah, it definitely took a lot of inspiration from Red Hot Riding Hood. Mainly for the scene between Tina and Stanley when he is the mask and he's become the dog face and his heart is just beating out of his chest and all that, just pure straight from that cartoon. And it's actually shown early on in the movie when Stanley enters his apartment. It's on the TV.
Well,
he also has a statue of it as well.
Yes.
I'm curious to know, Andy, too. Like I said, this was a big movie when I was a young person. You're a young person. You're way younger than either one of us. How did you come upon it? Was this like a TBS watch or something, or?
No, so what it was, I had a childhood friend. I was about 7 or 8, mostly 8, and he had this just wall of VHS tapes that went on the top of his room. And he's like, I got a movie to show you. I said, what is it? He said, it's called The Mask. I was like, oh, okay. And so he pops it into his TV VCR combo situation, and I watched the film, and I was just immediately hooked to Jim Carrey. Like, I think this was my first Jim Carrey movie because I didn't see the How the Grinch Stole Christmas until a little bit later.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just in a trance the whole time. Just I could not get my eyes off of him. I couldn't get my eyes off of this film. I was just like, what is this movie that you're showing me? And as soon as the movie ended, I said, would it be okay if we watched it again? And he's like, yeah, sure. And so we watch it again. Fast forward through all the stuff and watch it again. And then I'm like, can we watch it again? And he's like, really? And I'm like, yeah. And so he's like, okay, I'm just going to go to bed. You can watch it or whatever. And so I spent all night just watching it over and over and over, rewinding it, fast forwarding, rewinding, just through the whole movie. And about 8:30 in the morning, my friend comes back into his room. He was sleeping on the couch in his living room. And he comes back in and he just sees me still sitting there. And I just slowly turn my head and my eyes are deep red. And I'm like, hi. And he's like, have you been up all night? And I'm like, what time is it? And he said, 8:30. Then yeah. He's like, have you just been watching it over and over? And I'm like, yeah. I'm like, hey, can I borrow this? And he's like, no. So it took a little while for me to get my own copy of it. But yeah, it's just been a childhood favorite ever since.
Well, I think that might be the difference maybe for your love of it, rather because I've always found it to be off-putting because if you watch Ace Ventura, Pet Detective is a different kind of comedy altogether, right? This is more cartoon, right. Silly, younger kids would appreciate it, kind of cartoony stuff. And from here on out, like Jim Carrey does the Cable Guy. He ends up doing the Truman Show, showing his acting chops with that, and a couple other more serious films. But
Sunshine of the Spotless Mind.
Yeah, exactly. Right later on, he does that, so he kind of veers away from comedy and then comes back. So my foray, Dumb and Dumber, was the first time I ever saw Jim Carrey in anything, and then I watched Ace Ventura. So that's the kind of comedy I loved, his dirty humor, odd, eccentric stuff. This is more. It's still funny. It's got its moments when it's funny, but it's more, I don't know, silly, like slapstick humor, cartoon stuff. And I think maybe if I had seen it like you were saying, reversed, right? This was my first experience. It might have hit a little different, So.
Well, allow me to be the old man here. And
I know John Paul. I was about to say John Paul's got some thoughts. So.
Yeah. I'm the old man here. So for me, my first exposure of Jim Carrey was in Living Color. So his faces, his mannerisms, his twerking his body in shapes and ways that you never really would imagine. And then because I worked at a video store, I got the height of Jim Carrey's like fandom when stuff started coming out on video. And this was one that was like, Warner Brothers knew what they wanted when they cast him in this. and they wanted, a catchphrase. They wanted something to get people hooked. And when this hit video, they knew how to market it, which was a big, ginormous standee that had the motion sensor, and you'd walk by and it would go, "Smoking!" And sometimes it would go off in the middle of the night while I'm counting the night's receipts at the video store, and it's just me, and I know nobody's in there except me, and this thing would go off and freak me the fuck out.
Yeah, I had a
Because it
similar
would just
thing.
go, "Smoking!"
Mhm.
And if that's something, Andy, we could talk about briefly too. Let me pull this back up here. I wrote them down. As a teenager, this movie was huge, like I said, this summer. And then into fall, I heard, "Ooh, somebody stop me." Smoking. Thank
And
you.
it's
You
spawned
love
a
me. You really
cartoon,
love me.
Saturday
Yeah.
morning cartoon. I don't know if you guys remember.
P-R-T-Y.
Yeah. It's party time. Praty, because I gotta. Uh, these phrases were said in middle schools across America about 1 billion times, and so my
Right.
friends would drive me nuts saying these lines over and over. But yeah, it became a silly thing that people like. It was funny, and then it just became overkill. Much like The Simpsons, Bart, eat my shorts, that kind of stuff.
Or
Everything
like
As a cowman.
cowabunga, yeah.
Heath Ledger's Joker with
With
that kind
what?
of
I'm
thing.
sorry.
Like in the Dark Knight with Heath Ledger's Joker was just like, you want to know how I got these scars? And all
Exactly.
that was and I was young when that movie came out, and like there'd be kids that we get to watch that kind of stuff. I really couldn't, so because like I would go to my childhood friend's house to watch a lot, like The Mask and Little Monsters and Bill and Ted and Gremlins and all that, because I was a very sheltered child growing up, so I would have to go there to watch all that stuff,
Right.
and so I wouldn't know what they're talking about when they're going like and all that stuff, and yeah, drove me.
But yeah, we had so yeah, that was an annoying thing that happened later. But John Paul was telling me, John Paul, didn't you say in your video store though this thing was through the roof rental wise,
Oh
right?
my gosh, yeah. I mean, Jim Carrey was. I mean, the span of like Pet Detective through Dumb and Dumber. So I'm in a span of like, I want to say
3 years
3 or 4 years at
hmm
least. It was like Carrey mania. I mean, I think he probably even got sick of himself. You know, uh,
Probably.
I, and I think this movie is also. I mean, even though it did well, when people think back of Jim Carrey's like stuff, people kind of forget this movie only because it's funny, but it's funny in a strange kind of way, in the Jim Carrey kind of not over the top silly, but more like it's his body, it's his face, it's even the songs, because this is as much as a musical as anything else as well, because there is a lot of that. And then, like I said, there was a Saturday morning cartoon that they spun off,
Yeah.
and they based it off his version of The Mask, not the comic book, but Jim Carrey's. I mean, they've even, if I remember right, they brought back in the cartoon the character of Detective Doyle being his
Mm-hmm.
partner in it. So it was kind of like, that's strange. And I've got something to say about Detective Doyle, and I'll say it right now. So rewatching this movie, I'm like, God, his face just looks familiar. His face looks familiar. And I thought in my head canon, and then when I looked it up, and I was wrong. Admittedly, I was wrong. He looks like a bloated version of Proctor from the Police Academy movies. I thought they were the same actor. They're not. They look
No.
very similar. And they
That
act
that
like the same kind of character. So I'm like, oh, it's Proctor
Yeah.
just now going on to this. And it's
yeah.
not, you know.
Yeah, that guy is a character actor. He's been in a ton of stuff. I looked him up.
Yeah,
He's
they both have
yeah.
actually, if you really look
Yeah.
at their careers. And even I, I mean, I'm gonna put you kind of on the spot there, Randy. The villain in this, Mr. Peter Green.
hmm
A couple months later, a movie comes out. You know who he is, right?
Yeah, I mean he's the bad guy in every movie in the '90s. So yeah,
Yeah, but do you know which particular bad guy?
he was Zed in Pulp Fiction.
That is correct. He is
Yeah,
Zed, and Zed is dead.
Zed's dead. Um, but yeah, I wanted to bring that up. We're talking about the musical aspect of this film. There's a lot of song and dance numbers introducing Cameron Diaz in her first role ever, and
Oh
wow,
yeah,
she
she was like,
looks. Yeah, she's stunning in this movie. I mean, and I think that's what they were going for. They wanted the bombshell, classic like lounge singer from that time period, like because this is supposed to be in a futuristic city. We get that from the opening, but it's so much grounded in the 50s, 40s. There's even 50s style cars that he gets lent, in this thing.
yeah,
So
But that
I think
goes
that
back to this being made in the 90s because the 50s became huge in the 90s.
yeah,
Ska became a pop cultural phenomenon. Brian Setzer Orchestra, who originally was a part of Stray Cats, became huge again in the 90s.
yeah, and that's where the music comes
Yeah,
into this because that started at this peak here, right here in this time period. That goes all the way through the end of the '90s. But the producers wanted to take the big dance number out of this. I was looking at this. Was it Boom Chicky Boom? Right, that song, right?
yeah, boom, chicky, boom, boom.
They thought it went on way too long. They didn't think it was funny, and they thought it ground the comedy to a halt. Which I just watched this Wednesday night. We're filming Friday, so it's still fresh in my brain. I hadn't seen it in 20 years, just so you know. Um, I think that scene's great. It made me laugh, and the song's catchy. So I'm glad they left
wait,
it in. But yeah, so I mean, like I said, uh, the song and dance numbers in this, I remembered them being more um, grating, but they were really fun. And then, if I could, I know we have talked about a lot of the movie, but Richard Jenny he's a comedian from the '90s and '80s. He plays. Oops, hit the wrong button here. You get to this part here. I want to get the name right. He plays Charlie
Charles
Shoemaker.
Schumer, yeah.
Shoemaker. He's Jim Carrey's buddy in this movie, and he's got a lot of
Mhm.
really funny one-liners. He's a funny guy. He's a comedian. The stand-up I saw is HBO stand-up in '93 called Platypus Man. Then he had one in '97 called Good Catholic Boy, and then one in 2005 called A Big Steaming Pile of Me. Those are all on YouTube, and I highly recommend you guys check them out. But I hadn't seen him in anything in a long time, so I looked it up to see what happened to the guy. And apparently he took his own life in
yeah.
2007, which is just a damn shame. And if you guys, there's one thing we could take away from this conversation is check out all of Jim Carrey's filmography. But the second would be Richard Jenny was a jewel in this time period. The guy he didn't have a bunch of acting credits, but the stuff he was in, he was memorable. And his stand up is classic this time period. And he was a really funny guy. And it's sad that he's no longer here. So I just
He
wanted to
also had
mention
a
that.
short-lived TV show called Platypus Man on either the CW. Well, no, it was before the CW, so it would have been the WB
I don't, I
and
wasn't,
UPN
I
Network.
know he was
Sorry, it
in,
was UPN Network. I believe it was UPN Network, which then ended up becoming the CW.
I know he was in
And that was a funny show.
Dr. Katz, or I think that's what it was called, Dr. Katz, it's the Comedy Central therapist session, I believe. So I think he did a voice or two on that as well. He was a funny guy, and so if if you're watching this on YouTube, hop on over, search bar Richard Jenny, and check out some of his stand up. It's worth your time. But as far as that goes, Andy, you got anything else you want to talk about on this end, like? Any fun memories after the fact, like once you got the VHS, watching with other people or anything?
I mean, I would say I definitely acted out a lot of the movie. Like I used to, for some reason, I thought it was just silly, but it didn't make any sense because I didn't have another person. But when him and Cameron are dancing, and then he like spins around and then throws her up in the air, and he's like yawn, and then checks his watch and then goes like that. I used to do that for some stupid reason, or I would reenact the Cuban Pete scene,
Right.
mainly just to myself because I was a very lonely child and with ADHD. So and um one scene that, for some reason, it's my favorite scene in the whole movie. It's when Tina meets Stanley as the Mask for the first time, and he's just like, I'm trying to think of the line where he's like holding her, and he's like, "I would dip my ladle in your Vichy," and she just kicks him, and he's like, "She is a toy. I love it." And I would, I don't know, quote that for some stupid, just the she's so coy. Again,
I love that part because they would never do that in a movie now. That whole scene, but what it was a parody of Pepe Le Pew. You know,
hmm
and anybody that grew up with those cartoons knew that. Out of context nowadays, young people might not understand that reference, but yeah, he's not trying to assault her. He's just acting out the Pepe Le Pew, you know. But yeah, that
hmm
whole part made me laugh. I forgot all about it, and yeah, I dip your ladle in, or my ladle in your vichois. I mean, there's some
yeah, or like
pretty
when,
risque humor in this thing that's geared towards kids.
oh yeah,
It
for
is
Yeah,
PG
sure.
13 though. Just
that
saying.
is true. Yeah,
Yeah, or like when they're going through his pockets and they got like a bazooka and the rubber chicken and all that, and then a picture of the sergeant's wife. It's like, you
yeah,
son of a, you know, oh, I thought you have a sense of humor because you married her.
yeah,
Like
right.
I had dreamed of, if when I was dealing with bullies, I would just do that, and it never worked. Never.
I used to always say things about their moms, police moms. That would get me punched. You don't get a mug like this by not getting punched, but I would,
Well, no, like,
yeah.
hmm yeah, because I mean, I remember I got a black eye really bad once because I quoted Major Payne to the kid. I said, "I heard your mom was so fast, you played pool with the planet." Bam.
Nice. Well, let's all just go around and real quick too, and say one scene we enjoyed from the movie. If you don't mind, I'll start. I really love the interaction at the bank with Cameron Diaz, and it shows you how good of an actor Jim Carrey was on the cusp of being, because he's playing this like sad sack, right? And he's still landing with this chick, but you know why? She has nefarious motives. But then it cuts to about 10 minutes later, we get the mask in her the first time we see him as the mask, and it's just such a good piece of acting, that small little part juxtaposed with the big powerhouse emotions he's giving as the mask. I think that there's something to be said that you're seeing little seeds of how much more of a serious actor he could be later, which I think is really interesting and great, you know. So Andy, what do you say?
Um, I mean, I already, of course, my favorite scene was what we were just talking about with the Pepe Le Pew thing. But besides that, it would probably be when he gets revenge on the mechanics.
Oh,
So
so
hold
great.
on to your lug nuts. It's time for an overhaul. God, that part every time does not fail to make me laugh every single time.
Hilarious. I love that part too. That's a good one. John Paul, I know
Oh
you
yeah.
weren't a fan, but pick a part that you
I
like.
think my favorite scene, and I think I like it so much because it seemed like an ad lib scene, which also shows too how good Jim Carrey is at acting, is the second excuse to the boss when he's like, now he doesn't have the mask, but he's just kind of standing up for himself, and he just rips it into him, and he's
I
like,
love that.
I'm sure the IRS would have fun with you. Like that whole dialogue. Like I said, I would not be surprised if it was just straight up ad lib by Jim Carrey just shooting out stuff at the guy, and the guy's just face was just like, oh shit, oh
Right.
shit, he knows everything. I mean, I love that because again, that shows to me he's really good at acting too. Just how fast it was, just like boom, 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 just knocking the guy down. So I love that scene.
That was really great. All three of those great scenes. In closing, I would just like to say a couple of small things about the movie here. I'm just going to give you, I want to give you some behind the scenes things I found when I was doing a little digging here. The oversized teeth on the masked character were originally to be used only during the silent scenes when he was smiling, but Jim Carrey learned to talk while wearing them so that his character would look more wacky, which I think, again, just genius on his part. Chuck Russell reveals in the commentary for the special edition DVD that a lot of money was saved on practical special effects because Jim Carrey was so good, like John Paul brought up during his little portion of it, was Jim Carrey was, known for in his stand-up and in A Living Color for his body movements. So he was so flexible and cartoonish, they didn't have to use CGI or any sort of enhancements, really, for his movements, which is just crazy if you watch the movie, just thinking that a lot of that, he didn't have any help digitally. It's crazy. The banana suit that Jim Carrey wears is based on a suit that his mother made for him when he was doing his first stand-up comedy show. It did not go over well, as you can imagine. And the part where Stanley is being chased by the gangsters, he pulls a wet condom out of his pocket and says, "Sorry, wrong pocket," was an actual improvisation by Jim Carrey, which ended up being one of the producer's favorite little scenes in the movie. So I thought that was great. I just want to say overall, I give this flick a C plus. It reminds me of my youth. When I was 13 years old when this came out, there was a lot of this was my formative years for films, and there were a lot of comedies to choose from, and Jim Carrey was a staple from this time period on for that. There's enough nostalgia here for a rewatch for me again someday. Maybe it'll be another 20 years. I don't know, but it's not one of my favorites of his, but I recommend it to especially young people. Andy, even younger than you. I think they should check it out and get into Jim Carrey this way if they're going to. So, Andy, what do you say?
Well, I think that probably the most underdog champion of this film, besides Jim Carrey, is Milo the dog, because that dog just acts his heart out.
You're right. I forgot all about him, man. Yeah,
so good. Like, when when Jim opens up the closet and Milo's like digging at the door and all of that, and then when the dog dons the mask and he just gets this huge, just CGI, just killer dog face, and when he's just when when Jim's in jail and Milo's just jumping trying to get into the jail cell. Like, come on, put some effort into, and he just keeps jumping. And like I said, he, again, besides Jim Carrey, Milo is again the underdog champion of the film. Like, full heart. Like I said, he's such a good little puppy actor.
Totally agree. And I could be wrong, but somebody told me once, and again, I didn't look this up because I didn't think of it, but that either that dog was or was considered for the Fraser dog. Was John Paul? Do you know if that's true? Somebody told me that.
I'm not sure
No,
about that.
I
mean,
can't
it is the
remember.
same kind of breed.
Yeah, maybe it was, or maybe it was the same company that did that. I can't remember now, but that dog was. You're right. Like, he steals the show in a lot of the scenes. So highly recommend it. Yeah, just for the dog, check it out. And what did you give it, Andy? I'm sorry, out of the rating scale.
I would give it probably just a straight A for me. Like I said,
Solid.
it's nostalgic for me, of course. It's a huge part of my, I guess, creative mind. I go back to that film practically with anything that I do, like, even if it doesn't come across that way, like, it's such an important film to me, I guess. So I would just give it a great.
All right, sounds good. Jean Paul.
Okay, I have to be the bad guy.
You don't have to, but all right.
I don't have to, but I'm gonna. I had a lot of problems with this movie. Rewatching it, I mean, I knew going in it was going to be a low score for me because of just I really was not a big fan of it the first time I watched it. My score did kind of improve rewatching it, but I also did realize a lot of my kind of dislike for this movie really does stem from its runtime. It's an hour and 41 minutes from credit to credit. Um, I would honestly, this movie would be tighter if you cut anywhere from 15 to 20 minutes. And I could, there's just kind of some dead moments, some moments that kind of like lead to nowhere. The whole kind of double cross with the newspaper gal and her whole
Yeah,
subplot.
Peggy.
felt
Mhm.
like it went nowhere. And I like that actress, and I liked her boss. That's the dad from Boy Meets World. I'm a huge fan of that show from the
Yeah, and then
90s.
also
Yeah. It just felt
and
like,
also with
here, let's just throw this in.
What were you
And
saying, Andy?
so, sorry. Yeah, go ahead, Andy.
was you done, Gene?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. And then with Peggy being Amy Asbeck, of course, widow to the genius that is John Ritter. I didn't know that was her for like years until I started getting into John Ritter, and then she appeared with him on an episode of the Cosby Show where she was pregnant, and I'm like, that's Peggy, and and then I made the connection to that, so it was just like that's so cool.
Awesome.
But
Yeah, I didn't
yeah,
even know she was on that at the Cosby Show, but it makes sense because she was really popular from like mid '80s all the way through the mid '90s. So, and I think
Problem
late '90s.
Child, both of them.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. But yeah, John
and,
Paul.
and, and
Go on.
again, the runtime's really what kind of, because there's some moments where it just kind of dragged. I love all the musical numbers. I like music in movies, and like I said, I really enjoyed kind of Jim Carrey's kind of like zany stuff out there. But for me, just some of the runtimes, there were some dead moments. They were like, okay, are we gonna move along here? So that's kind of why it kind of kept going lower and lower for me. Ultimately, it's a D plus, maybe D. Um, I mean, do I still think people should see it? Yeah, like exactly the same reason why you guys said. It's a part of like Jim Carrey's history in terms of his evolution of an actor, and you can really see all his different things. Like I said, his improv stuff is really what I love about this, which you'll later see in other things, from his dramas to his back to going back into comedy to even his Robotnik from his recent Sonic movies. Which, like I said, for Sonic versus the Mask, I mean, some of those things are very similar and they go hand in hand in terms of, because it's his performance and it really, the way he shines. And again, this is directed by a revered director for doing Nightmare on Elm Street 3. People love Nightmare on Elm Street 3, and you could see some horror elements that I wish they would have kind of kept. There's also some things that I noticed rewatching it now where it's like I could tell where a lot of the budget went towards the special effects and the CGI, which rightfully so, but in other scenes they look really poorly done. So it's like you took the money away from here to kind of do stuff over here where it's like, here are some boxes.
Well, it's like I
Here's
said.
some, yeah,
I said to you the other day when we were
it's
talking about
uneven.
it, it's, we're not talking about a movie that had Jurassic Park's budget. You know what I
No, of
mean?
course not.
So $23 million in that time period is still pretty solid. So, and this is at this time cutting edge CGI technology
Right.
in the vein of what they're doing with animation. So, you're right. Some of it doesn't hold up as it would, but as like Jurassic Park does, because they spent the extra time and had animatronics and things. This is some of the purely CGI mixed with practical, completely different thing. And you're right. I mean, the dog face thing looked pretty silly, but it was still funny, and I still think impactful for the scene. So,
So yeah, sorry, but D.
yeah, it's all right. So, what'd you give it? You said D.
D. I'll go my ultimate D.
All right. Well, we're about to wrap up here, Andy. We do a segment. Usually we do the news, but today let's just skip the news. But we have a segment where we say, what's new on your shelves, or what do you got on your shelf you'd like to talk about? So, did you bring something to show us?
yes, I did. It's not a film; it's an
Okay.
object
Sure.
that I recently picked up, and I did make a little TikTok about it that I was very excited that I got it, and it is this Conan O'Brien Funko Pop
Oh, that's
because
so cool.
I am a massive Conan fan. I had been on the hunt for a Funko Pop of Conan for some time now, and I found it at a local antique store for about $10, and I was like, "You're coming with me."
That's awesome.
So
Can you get it in the frame a
yeah,
little more, just so everybody can see it a little
oh
bit?
yeah, There
Oh,
you
that's
go.
really cool, man.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's for the 25th anniversary of his late night show. Well, just in general, because of course he had the late night show, and then he did the night show for a few months,
Hmm.
and then he went to TBS. So yeah,
Awesome.
I freaking love it.
Really cool. I was just going to say when we saw you at the Horror Hounds, I picked up quite a few things, but something I was really excited about, I got the Arrow 4K of Texas Chainsaw 2. I love the slipcover; it's just beautiful. But it's got the 2-disc limited edition with the 4K Ultra disc and the Blu-ray bonus features, and it has the original poster and a booklet, the making of booklet inside. Just a beautiful set altogether. And I got it for like $35, right, John Paul? You were standing there, right? It was like
Yeah,
30, which is way less
very
than what I
reasonable.
had seen it
Very
anywhere
reasonable.
else. So, but Horror Hound, I'm telling you guys, gotta go if you're a horror fan. You find so many cool
And
things like this.
it's
So,
looking so good now. Like with all the people that they're announcing, it's looking like it's gonna be fun.
yeah, for sure. Jean Paul, did you get anything? Got anything?
I had to bring the haul together because I kind of got them all at the same time.
Okay.
So um, through through my job, I got some free gift cards for stuff. So anytime I get free stuff, I
Yeah,
give
Andy, I don't know
more
if you're
free
aware,
stuff.
but Jean Paul's a pretty big deal at his work,
I'm
and
a big deal at my work.
I don't know
Not
what
as
he.
good as when I used to work at a video store,
Yeah, I
but
know. I don't know what he does over there. He kisses a lot of ass, but they're always giving him gift cards. I worked at my job for 15 years, and all I get's a paycheck. So,
yeah.
but
But I went while Arrow was having their Easter sale, and I took advantage of. I got Trick or Treat on 4K,
that's a pretty one
which
right there. I like
it's
that.
it's. I mean,
So that's
I
not the
watched this
original.
movie.
That's not the original. That's the remake,
If you
right?
say it's the remake, I'm gonna punch you in the face next time I see you.
We had a whole argument,
Totally
Andy, about.
different movie.
He got real mad at me about
This is
it.
a totally different movie than the 1980s Trick or Treat.
All right, fine. All
Bye.
right.
Anyways, Trick or
All right.
Treat 4K. I watched this, because I've had it on DVD and other formats. Uh, every Halloween we watch it once or twice. So
Yeah,
I
it's
have it
always
on
my
DVD.
Halloween capper. I
Yeah,
watch it on Halloween night. I love it. It's a good
it's
one.
great. Then, in honor of you, Randy,
Oh, such a good
I
set right there.
got the Inglorious Bastards 4K Arrow with all kinds of great new features.
I'm
Like,
Lieutenant Aldo Rain.
it's pretty awesome.
Love that guy.
And then lastly, because I'm from the 80s, I'm a Gen Xer, and I love
And you shake your
practical
camera a
effects
lot.
and shaking the camera
Yeah.
and CGI. Before there was CGI, there were just little
Blocks.
cartoon effects.
The
The
Last
Last
Starfighter.
Starfighter,
It's a good flick right there.
directed by anyone?
I forget the director.
Bueller.
I don't know off the top of my
Anyone?
head.
Are you
Who
serious?
is it? I
You
forget,
don't
man.
know?
Sorry.
I'll give you a clue. He's Michael Myers
Well,
in the first
John
Halloween.
Carpenter. Oh, Nick Castle.
Nick Castle.
Nick Castle.
That's
I was
right.
like,
I
that
love
wasn't
this
Carpenter,
movie.
but yeah, Nick Castle, good one.
They
I,
actually went and did some composite stuff to this, and it looks so good.
I was going to ask
This
how the
is
transfer
such a
was.
great movie. The transfer is even better than anything I've seen before. This is a childhood movie of mine. This and Flash Gordon are probably, aside from Return of the Jedi, because that's how I learned to speak English. Yeah. By the way, anyone, Camp Endor?
Camp
Fun
Indoor,
place to
love
go
it.
to camp. Just great movies. I would watch those over and over and over and over again. I imagined that my life could be just like all the characters from The Last Starfighter, that I was playing video games, that I was, transported to magical lands. And if they ever make a sequel like they've talked about for, 20 something odd years, I'd be first in line. But those are the new things on my shelf.
One last thing, and then I'll let you guys go and call it a day. Again, Andy, thank you so much for being with us. And
Yeah.
ladies and gentlemen, you can find Horror Fan Andy on the TikTok at Horror Fan Andy. you will find him there. Check his videos out. He actually puts production value into his stuff, which I appreciate. Yeah, he's an
He's a lot
intelligent
better than
he's an
anything I've
intelligent
ever
young
done on the
man. He knows
TikTok.
what he's talking about. He does funny videos and he does serious videos, and he's just a good dude all around. So follow him on there. But
And
before
I'm
we
a fan
go,
of horror fan Andy.
you can follow me on TikTok. Just at Randy Wotan. John Paul is at Movie Reviews. Find us on there, but definitely check out Andy. Before we go, though, I just want to say, if you had to pick one other Jim Carrey movie to suggest to our audience before we go, which one would you pick? I'll start off. I was thinking about it last night. I was sitting here just racking my brain. I'm like, what says to me the best of both worlds of Jim Carrey? And I have to say The Truman Show. Um, it's funny, it's sad, it's amazing. It's just a well put together movie, and I think it showcases everything he does. So that's my pick. So if you haven't seen The Truman Show, seek it out. It's streaming. Andy?
I would have to go with his turn as Andy Kaufman in Man on the Moon.
I love that flick
His
too. That was my
performance,
second one. So yeah.
his performance, like he became Andy Kaufman. I mean, and he just plays that character so he does the foreign man voice just perfectly. He does Andy's voice pretty well. Just I mean, again, because of course Andy being a stand-up comic, Jim handles that area so well, and then again handles the more dramatic stuff with later in Andy's life when he gets diagnosed with cancer and all that stuff. Just I mean, just an absolute breathtaking performance by Jim Carrey in that film.
Totally agree. Jean Paul?
I mean, I now have to pick something else because Andy, you took mine. Because yeah, oh my gosh, that really is one of the best things he's ever done.
I totally agree. It was tied for me. I also like The Majestic by Frank Darabont. Um, that's where he owns the theater. He comes back as
Mhm.
the World War II guy. It's a little off the beaten path. So those three, Man on the Moon, The Truman Show, and The Majestic, are kind of tied for me. But yeah, I think Man on the Moon is. I loved Andy Kaufman growing up. I mean, it's right up my alley. I love weird humor. So
I will choose a movie that most people and nobody will choose, and that's Earth Girls Are Easy.
Earth Girls Are Easy.
He's
Great flick.
absolutely hilarious. Him and Damon Wayans and Jeff Goldblum. I mean, just the three of them in that movie are just absolute laugh riots. So
I totally agree.
yeah,
Fantastic. That's a
and
good one
Downtown
too.
Julie Grant.
And I believe all those are streaming on different services. So I'm not going to hold your hand and tell you you have Google. Check it out, audience. But as always, I'm Ray McGuff. Horror fan Andy, thank you so much for stopping through. I appreciate it.
Absolutely.
And as with me as always is Tacklebox Jean Paul Mantilla.
I have a snack pack this
Snack
week.
pack.
But anyways.
So thank
This
you
is
guys
Jean
for
Paul.
watching, and stay tuned.